6 women are brought before the magistrate's court to face murder charges.
Member of Parliament for Engliston, Glenys Hanna Martin, suspended from the House of Assembly. Find out what led the Speaker to make that decision.
Still to come, the Attorney General insists he did not lie about a draft bill relating to marital rape.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joachim. Topping news tonight, many were stunned last week when police reported that a 19-year-old mother was stabbed to death while walking through a New Providence neighborhood. Our Giorgio Bain today covered the arraignment of those accused of her murder. Here's a report.
It was an emotional day for family members and friends of those 6 ladies who stood accused of the murder of Brianna Mackey just last week. It was an emotional scene outside the magistrate's court today as 6 females accused of killing 19-year-old Brianna Mackey last week were escorted inside court, shackled at the hands and feet, and arraigned on murder charges. The South Street Court complex was under heavy guard as police officers blocked the streets in an attempt to control the unruly crowd. Appearing before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt were 20-year-old Thea Williams of Wolf Road in the blue jacket, 20-year-old Zaria Burrows in the gray hoodie, 20-year-old Davia Laws of Watland Street in the white shirt, 20-year-old Darvanique Edwards in the gray shirt, also of Watland Street, and a 16-year-old girl and 17-year-old girl. They were all arraigned on 1 count of murder. According to police reports, shortly after 6 p.m. on Thursday, January 25th, a young woman was walking on Key West Street when a silver Honda Accord pulled up next to her. 3 females jumped out of the vehicle, armed with sharp instruments. The females stabbed the woman multiple times before speeding off in the vehicle. The victim was taken to hospital where she was pronounced dead. Zaria Burrows was represented by attorney Gina Morley, who told the court that her client suffers from seizures and is currently pregnant. The 6 accused were not required to enter a plea to the murder charge and were remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections. They were returned to court on March 14th to be served with a voluntary bill of indictment, and the case will proceed in the Supreme Court. As the females were escorted outside of court, tears streamed down their faces. Relatives of the accused also cried and consoled each other outside court as the handcuffed women walked past the angry crowd. This as family members of the 19-year-old mother of 1, Brianna Mackey, shouted from a distance, "Don't cry now." Reporting for our news, I'm Giorgio Bain.
A heated exchange in the House of Assembly has resulted in the naming and suspension of an opposition member of Parliament. Jared Higgs tells us it all went down as Member of Parliament for Engliston, Glenys Hanna Martin, left Parliament while the Speaker was addressing her.
Honourable Member, have your seat. The member for Engliston, Glenys Hanna Martin, is named by this chair.
That's the moment that Member of Parliament for Engliston, Glenys Hanna Martin, was named and suspended by Speaker of the House, Halston Moultrie, who also issued stern instructions to Parliament Sergeant.
A decision on the period of suspension of the member for Engliston will be determined, and this Parliament will be informed. Sergeant at Arms, you are hereby notified that the member for Engliston is hereby suspended from this Parliament, and that the member is not entitled to enter the precincts of this Parliament until otherwise determined by this House and the chair.
It all started when Hanna Martin attempted to clarify comments she made last week that were ultimately struck from the House record. Hanna Martin asserted that the Hansard record exonerated her by showing that she did not make certain comments attributed to her. Moultrie responded to Hanna Martin's assertion, stating that the digital copy of House proceedings reflect that the member was in fact disrespectful to the chair. He added that he requested the tapes from ZNS because
I am new here. I don't know who is who, and I don't trust people until they earn my trust.
Opposition leader Philip Davis rose to Hannah Martin's defence and accused the Speaker of conducting an inquiry on his own without allowing the member for Engliston to be heard. After more back and forth and repeatedly asking Davis and Hannah Martin to have their seats, Moultrie then suggested to the opposition members that if they didn't like the rules, they could vacate their seats.
And Honourable Member for Cat Island, Rum Kingston, Salvador, and the Honourable Member for Angleton, if you do not want to abide by the rules, you can withdraw from the Parliament.
After striking from the record several comments made by Davis for speaking without being recognised, Moultrie was addressing Hannah Martin. That's when the Angleton MP walked out, leading Moultrie to name and suspend her. She was closely followed by her fellow opposition members, with the exception of opposition business leader Picewell Forbes, who was absent. Hannah Martin and her opposition colleagues spoke to the press outside the House of Assembly. That's where opposition leader Philip Davis says he feels that Hannah Martin was treated unfairly.
I was astounded to hear the Speaker admit that he went into an inquiry concerning the member without even allowing the member to know about the inquiry, and then to find out and to make conclusions that's adversely impacting her character, reputation, and even standing as a member of this community. For
her part, Hannah Martin says she feels that the Speaker didn't handle the matter professionally.
I consider it very personal in nature and very, I think it's, I don't want to use language to describe it. I think that it's very unfortunate that the Speaker has taken it to a personal level, because the issue was the Hansard speaks for itself. I think he indicated he ain't really trusting his office at Parliament. I thought he said that.
He said it.
You know, and so, and so he went further and further. But the bottom line is a simple matter. He said, the Speaker asserted that I said certain things. I got the Hansard. The record does not support what he said I said. And he's gone down a completely different journey.
This isn't the first time Hannah Martin has been named in the House of Assembly. In 2009, she was named by House Speaker Alvin Smith following protests about a young man who was found dead in police custody. Reporting for R News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Amid calls by government ministers to tighten down on aviation regulations, it turns out no pilot has ever been charged in connection to hacking. And as the investigation continues into that deadly plane crash on Andros, a lot of focus has shifted on the pilot and his ability to fly in those conditions.
It is extremely difficult to imagine what those persons on that aircraft would have felt on that fateful day.
The investigation is expected to take another 6 months. But since that plane crash on January 17th that killed 6 people, less than 5% of the wreckage has been recovered, according to Air Accident Investigation Chief Investigator Delvin Major. The remainder, he believes, will never be found as the plane crashed along the edge of the tongue of the ocean. But one crucial piece recovered that may speak more to the pilot's ability to fly was his logbook, which had a total of 250 hours. Major says the last entry was back in 2014.
For commercial, you can get your commercial around 250 hours, commercial license around 250 hours. But I don't think any company would hire you to fly passengers with that minimum amount of hours.
The owners of the aircraft, according to the authority, are set to be investigated. Authorities are now examining the pilot's ability to fly that sort of plane without the proper certification, the weather conditions, and any maintenance issues that may have played a role in the twin-engine plane crashing and disintegrating upon impact. But they won't get an answer to everything.
So right now we're looking at the role, the pilot's qualifications, his experience, and his weather handling capabilities were to determine if his lack of experience, his lack of weather, being able to fly in weather, or whatever other forces could have caused what took place.
And as cabinet ministers make repeated calls for stricter aviation regulations, Director General of the Bahamas Civil Aviation Authority, Captain Charles Benaby, revealed today why air hacking is so common. No one has ever been charged for it.
If you know that you're going to be able to do 100 miles per hour on Tonic-Darling Highway and not suffer any consequences, what's to stop you?
Now, the Civil Aviation Authority is cracking down, working with the government on tightening regulations, introducing cameras, and keeping a much closer eye on pilots.
My team members will be on the ramp every day from morning, early morning, until night. If an operator is engaged in that practice, and we have strong information that they are, they will be caught.
The penalty for hacking? A $10,000 fine, imprisonment, or both. So in a case like the one in Andros involving a small aircraft and lots of questions surrounding the pilot's records and ability to fly the plane, what kind of action, if any, could the family members of the victims take? For starters, they can file a lawsuit if there was negligence.
Could be the owner of the aircraft, if the pilot is still alive and after we're finished with him, to the pilot. Anybody involved in that operation could have some culpability.
According to a document laid in the House of Assembly, Prime Minister Hubert Minnis' recent investment trip to Houston, Texas, cost Bahamian taxpayers more than $37,000. The 7-member Bahamian delegation spent approximately $26,000 on hotel and airfare, as well as $3,400 in per diem expenses. A reception is listed as costing $5,000, while transportation and incidental expenses came up to around $2,886.
And I'd also like to table, so that the press need not ask me, a copy of travel expenses. So Travis, you will have it all in your hand.
Minnis added that he intends to make more of these investment trips, and he's promised to release all the expense reports from these trips as a matter of transparency. Well, as the Office of the Attorney General prepares to appeal a judge's decision that a man who was involuntarily sent to Haiti without charge had his civil liberties violated, the government is also preparing to issue that man a travel document to return here. That's according to Immigration Minister Brent Simonet, who says his ministry is working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to have the document prepared today. This follows a Supreme Court ruling ordering the Bahamas government to issue a travel document to Jean Charles to allow him to travel from Haiti back to the Bahamas and cover his travel expenses.
The government is making provisions at the moment for a travel letter or the requisite documentation for Mr. Romy Charles to come back to Nassau. Once he's back in Nassau and makes an application, the Department of Immigration will look at his application and consider the appropriate action after that.
Responding to criticisms of the immigration process, Simonet reiterated that persons born in the Bahamas generally should not be deported. However, there are other factors such as the legitimacy of documents to consider.
Persons born here, as I've said, should not normally be deported. That is a fair comment. I am not commenting on what happened in the court case because I have not followed it. One thing that is very certain is that there are a number of, and I'm not saying this relating to this particular case, there are numerous cases of fraudulent documentation. So the Romy Charles case will bring the issue to the forefront. As you've heard the Attorney General say, there are several regulations being new amendments, the rules being drawn up, which will put in proper perspective the detention center, etc., etc.
The judge's ruling also calls for Charles to be issued with a citizenship document after he makes an application. Simonet says this court ruling doesn't mean that persons born here are automatically Bahamian citizens.
But there's still an overriding provision that persons have got to realize is the fact mere fact that you are born in the Bahamas does not automatically make you Bahamian. There has to be an application for those persons who are born in the Bahamas of non-nationals to apply to the government for status.
Weeks after the Bahamas Christian Council president told the media that he had not received a proposed draft bill on marital rape from the Attorney General, Bishop Delton Fernando revealed today that he had in fact received the document via email but did not see it. The revelation came one day after Carl Bethel accused Pastor Mario Moxie of calling him a liar. Vonnie Tu reports.
The tension was palpable as Attorney General Carl Bethel accused Pastor Mario Moxie of calling him a liar and repeating what he doesn't know. This after Moxie told those attending a town hall meeting last night that he has yet to see a draft bill relating to marital rape. At a recent United Nations meeting in Switzerland, Bethel announced that government has drafted a new amendment to the Sexual Offenses Act to provide for aggravated spousal sexual abuse. Bethel said civil and religious leaders who saw the draft even submitted positive feedback. Christian Council President Bishop Delton Fernando initially said he hadn't seen the draft, but he revealed in a statement today, "I have publicly stated that I did not receive a copy of the draft. Upon thorough thorough review of my emails, I have discovered that I was actually emailed a copy of the draft marked confidential when I was out of the country on January 9th. Fernanda's revelation came one day after Bethel and Pastor Mario Moxie got into a heated exchange over whether the AG had in fact sent the draft bill to church leaders, as Moxie claimed he never got it.
I have staff, and I know what it's like to send information, and I'm thinking that it's arriving to the destination, but something isn't delivered when it's sent, it's delivered when it's received. I can only say that the president of the Bahamas Christian Council has emphatically stated that he has not seen the document. As you say, he's not here to speak for himself.
And therefore, and with all respect, Mario, we've been friends for many years. And you coming here and repeating what you didn't know, but heard, you were calling me a liar.
The two men butt heads during a town hall meeting on marital rape hosted by the Bahamas Press Club and Jones Communication Network. Bethel has come under fire for detailing government's policy plans on marital rape and immigration while abroad before informing Bahamians of those plans. The AG has insisted there was consultation.
The first time in my presence, and the second time I've seen in print a statement that I didn't send something to the Christian Council. And it was said in my presence by Pastor Moxie. I want to let him know we can all speak for ourselves. We cannot speak for others. And if I say that I sent something somewhere to some other person, let them come in front of me and tell me that they didn't have me, I didn't send it to them. Because I assure you, I don't lie.
Meanwhile, the Bahamas Christian Council president sought Bethel's forgiveness today, saying, "In light of my unintentional error, I would like to publicly express my regret to the Attorney General." This as Moxie insisted that while no man has a right to force himself on his wife, he does not support amending the existing Sexual Offenses Act to criminalize marital rape.
And again, I'm speaking from the perspective of not having seen the proposed draft. It's imperative that we all understand that, because there are two fronts that we're fighting here. One front is the force and the aggression when it comes to marital rape. Nobody wants that. And then there's the other front of whether or not a wife says to her husband, I don't want to consent to marriage, for whatever reason.
You don't consent to sex, you mean?
Sorry, I don't consent to sex.
CEDAW member Marion Bethel says the draft legislation she has seen does not even scratch the surface and appears to be a compromise.
Where there is no consent in terms of sex, that is rape. It makes no difference whether it's in marriage or outside of marriage. And that is the international norm and standard of human rights that is in place now, that every country that has signed the convention is asked to move towards. Now, what we have here, in my opinion, in terms of the draft legislation that I've seen so far, is a compromise situation that does not reach nearly the international standard.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Vonik Chut.
Still to come on Our News, a woman pleads guilty to hitting a pedestrian on Carmichael Road and fleeing the scene. The details are after this break.